I just finished my first book of the year. It's called The Life She Wanted, Anita Abriel. This was one of the books that was available from Amazon on their first reads they put out every month, and it had been saved in my books and I hadn't read it yet. And let me put you down and see if that works better. And I very much enjoyed it. I rated it 4 stars. It takes place in the 1920s and follows the main character of Pandora. And she is not wealthy, but she has grown up around the wealthy, the likes of such as the Vanderbilts and other famous old money rich people. And so she's grown up around it, but isn't herself rich. And she dreams of being a fashion designer and is very good at designing dresses. But of course, in the 1920s, there wasn't all the opportunities for women. But it's full of all kinds of things: relationships, secret affairs, love story. So if you like things from that time period, or if you just want a good coming of age story, love story, I think you would enjoy this one. I had no idea what to expect going into it because I only learned from a description of it on Amazon, but I was pleasantly surprised that it kept me interested and I liked it even more than I thought I would. So, starting off the year on a good note. It is Monday, January 22nd, and I just finished an audiobook, The Newcomer by Mary Kay Andrews. In this book, the main character is Letty, and she has a sister, Tanya, who gets in with some bad people, gets herself into some trouble. They become estranged for a while because Tanya starts dating the guy that Letty was dating. And because she gets in with some not so good people, she ends up being killed. And she kind of warned Letty, they were back on good terms, and she kind of warned Letty that if something happens to me, it was... Actually, I don't know if they were married. I think they were. It was my husband, and make sure to take my daughter Maya and get her somewhere safe because he won't really be good to her, doesn't really care about her. So that's what ends up happening. Tanya gets killed. Letty takes the little girl Maya away from New York, where they were living, to Florida to flee and hide and hope that the father doesn't find them. And there's other adversaries as well that she's trying to avoid from the bad people that her sister got involved with. And there's money involved that they're looking for, stolen items that they're looking for. So she's got a lot to contend with. Not only that, but taking care of a 4-year-old girl, trying not to have anybody find out her true identity or report her to the police. And when she gets to this new town in Florida, is staying at this kind of resort, but more of like an old school Florida resort. And some of the people there are suspicious of her at first because she's a newcomer, because they don't know her. But in time, they grow to love her and Maya, and she forms strong relationships with them. But eventually, the past catches up with her, and she has to try to contend with that. So that's all I'll say about the plot. Don't want to give too much away. The only thing I will say about this book is it felt long to me, and it felt like it dragged in places. I felt like the book could have still covered everything important and been a lot shorter, because on audiobook it was 14 hours, which I think is one of the longer audiobooks that I've listened to. And yeah, it just felt like in some places it was like, do we really need to hear all this? Can we move the plot along? Like I said, it just felt like it dragged a bit, felt like it was longer than it needed to be. So I can't remember if I said, but I rated it 3 stars. Because while I did enjoy the story, I just felt like, can we get to it already? This is dragging. So I rated it 3 stars. But there you go. That's the latest and I'll be back with another book very soon. It is still Tuesday, January 22nd. I happened to finish 2 books today. I don't know why sometimes that happens where I finish the audiobook about the same time as the ebook I'm reading. But the next book I have to tell you about is The Only One Left by Riley Sager. And I believe I've read from this author before and recall enjoying it, even though I don't remember exactly what book it was. But this one I thoroughly enjoyed. I rated it 5 stars. I definitely wanted to keep reading, wanted to see what happened. It had lots of twists, kept me guessing. But basically we're following the main character of Kit. And this book takes place in the 80s, but also flashes back to 1929. And due to a set of unfortunate circumstances at Kit's previous job as a caregiver, she gets in trouble with her employer, and so she is offered to take this new caregiving job at this old estate, and this is on the coast of Maine, and basically because it's a job that nobody wants to take. So they assign it to her as kind of her last option because she's in hot water. And so she takes it with it being her only choice because she's got to pay her bills. And the reason nobody wants it and why she doesn't want it is because at this estate in 1929, 3 people were murdered. And the story goes that Lenora Hope, the person who she's assigned to caregive for, murdered her parents and her sister back in 1929. So she doesn't really want to work for a murderer, but again, doesn't have much choice in the matter. This house is also on the edge of a cliff, and that doesn't bode too well for anybody. Yeah, if you like mystery thrillers, I think you would enjoy it. Definitely had me wanting to keep reading and just get through that next chapter to see what would happen. And it did have surprise twists and turns. So if you like those sorts of stories, or even the time period that it's set in, I think you would like it. Hopefully I gave you enough of a description. I just don't want to give too much away. But yeah, it's one that I definitely recommend. A 5-star for me. So I hope you'll check it out and let me know what you think of it. It's Friday, January 26th, and I just finished a book, a big book. It's What to Expect When You Are Expecting. And I started this back in July last summer, but I was reading it trimester by trimester, kind of keeping up with the different stages as they went, so that's why it took so long to get through. I rated it 3 stars. I did find it helpful. There was some stuff that didn't apply to me, so I skimmed over that stuff, but I did find it to be a helpful book. If you know someone who is expecting, or you yourself are, I do think it's a good reference. But obviously it's very catered to a specific audience, specific people, but I found it helpful. Glad I read it, would recommend it. And now it's time to move on to some other books, like What to Expect in the First Year and things like that. So there you go. Tuesday, January 30th, and I just finished a book called The Book of Cold Cases by Simone St. James. And I have read this author before, have liked the books I've read from her. This was no exception. I rated it 4 stars. This one jumps between different time periods from the 70s to 2017, 2018 time period. The main character is Shay, and she has a blog called The Book of Cold Cases, where she writes about different cold cases, true crime stories, that sort of stuff. And there's this one murder or story that happened in her hometown in Oregon that was this famous, supposedly alleged lady serial killer, which for the time was very uncommon. There was a lot of men serial killers, but not women. And she gets the opportunity to speak to this person who has never really agreed to give interviews, was kind of mysterious amongst the town other than what had been reported about her. The accused is named Beth, and she agrees to talk to Shay for her blog. And in doing that, we flash back to when the murders happened, learn a little bit more about Beth, her family, her history. She also comes from a wealthy, privileged family, lives in a part of town that is full of just rich people, and is also very attractive, or especially during the time of the murders in the 70s was. And through her flashbacks and through learning more about Shay's history, some secrets are uncovered and some more mysteries, and there's even ghosts involved in the story, which I was not expecting. So if you're not a fan of ghosts, this might not be a good book for you, but it wasn't scary or anything. It's just there are ghosts that are part of the story. But it kept my interest. I got through it pretty fast. I enjoyed it. So check it out if you're looking for a good kind of crime story. I guess you could call it a mystery, thriller maybe, but it also has that true crime feel to it, like a podcast or, in this case, a blog kind of thing. So check it out if that sounds interesting to you, and I'll see you soon with another book. Today is Thursday, February 22nd, and I am just a little over 2 weeks into this postpartum world, so I haven't had a lot of time for reading, but I did get to finish today the simplest baby book in the world, and I rated it 3 stars. And it's a helpful book. I'd say more of a reference book, so it's one that I'll come back to at certain stages of my baby boy's life when I have questions or just need that reference. But it does make things, as the book title says, very simplified with lots of drawings and big text. So it was pretty quick to get through, even though I didn't get to. It took me a long time because I didn't get to sit down and read it day after day, so I took like a few weeks off and just finished it today. But yeah, if you're a new parent, I think it's a useful book for you to have as a reference. And again, one that even though I read through all of it, I will definitely be coming back to at certain stages for reference and for advice and what to do. So that's the latest. My reading has definitely slowed down, but I'm trying to make time for it during naps when I can, even though that's also when I should be napping, but sometimes I gotta do some things for myself for my mental health as well. So there you go, another book checked off, and I will see you when I see you with another book. It's Friday, March 1st, and I just finished another book. This was The Mystery Guest, Molly the Maid #2, so it's the sequel to, I don't remember what the first one was called, but it's the sequel. And I really enjoyed the first one, and I enjoyed this one as well. I rated it 4 stars. It's about Molly, who is a maid who works in a hotel, and she's a little bit, I'd say on the spectrum, a little bit OCD and very meticulous in her maid duties. And at the hotel she works at, a famous author is murdered, and she just happens to have a connection to this famous author. And amidst all of that, she gets caught up in helping with the investigation and even gets accused of being involved at some point. And I just really like the character, like the story, the mystery. Probably didn't like it as much as the first one, but that's because I really loved the first one. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. If you're looking for a good mystery, I think you would like it, so check it out. Today is March 24th, and I have another book to share with you. I actually finished it a couple days ago, but haven't had a chance to record this update for you. And I can't give you a very good description of the book because I don't know if it's just because I've had a newborn while reading this book or it's taken me longer to read it than I normally do, but it was hard for me to keep track of the characters and the plot, and so I'm not going to be able to give the best description. I rated it 3 stars for that reason, because I felt like it was a little bit tough to get through, a little bit tough to follow and keep up with, but maybe it's just because I was reading it while completely exhausted before bed. So I will just read the book synopsis to give you an idea, but I liked it enough to not DNF it, to keep reading it and finish it, but not enough that I would really remember it super good or can rate it high or anything like that. Sometimes bad things happen to good people, so good people have to do bad things. 20 years after a baby is stolen from a stroller, a woman is murdered in a care home. The 2 crimes are somehow linked, and a good bad girl may be the key to discovering the truth. Edith may have been tricked into a nursing home, but at 80 years young, she's planning her escape. Patience works there, cleaning messes and bonding with Edith, a kindred spirit. But Patience is lying to Edith about almost everything. Edith's own daughter, Cleo, won't speak to her, and someone new is about to knock on Cleo's door, and their intentions aren't good. With every reason to distrust each other, the women must solve a mystery with 3 suspects, 2 murders, and 1 victim. If they do, they might just find out what happened to the baby who disappeared, the mother who lost her, and the connections that bind them. So if that sounds interesting to you, check it out. But that's all I have for you for now. My reading has definitely slowed down, as I had expected it would. And since I'm only reading at night before bed when I'm tired, it is a little bit hard to focus and keep up with, but I'm going to keep plugging away, keep reading, and I'll share them with you as I can. It is Monday, April 15th, and I finished a book last night. Just noticed I probably need to clean this lens, but I'll do that at some point. And I don't know if it's because it's taking me longer to read books that I'm not remembering them as well to describe them to you, but the one I just finished was The Soulmate by Sally Hepworth, and I do want to warn you that this book does come with some trigger warnings, or should come with some trigger warnings for suicide, among other things, so if that's a trigger for you, then don't read this book. But let me read you their description, since I'm not going to be able to describe it super well. There's a cottage on a cliff, Gabe and Pippa's dream home in a sleepy coastal town. But their perfect house hides something sinister. The tall cliffs have become a popular spot for people to end their lives. Night after night, Gabe comes to their rescue, literally talking them off the ledge. Until he doesn't. When Pippa discovers Gabe knew the victim, the questions spiral. Did the victim jump? Was she pushed? And would Gabe, the love of Pippa's life, her soulmate, lie? As the perfect facade of their marriage begins to crack, the deepest and darkest secrets begin to unravel. And I did rate this 4 stars. It did keep my interest. Granted, it took me a while to get through just because I'm only having time to read before bed. So it doesn't give me much time to read because I get sleepy and fall asleep. But yeah, that's that. And I really need to edit this video. I haven't done any editing, and I feel like it's going to be an hour long. But hopefully I'll get to it one of these days. But I have no idea what I'm going to read next, but hopefully something maybe uplifting. So there you go. It is Wednesday, May 8th, and I just finished a book. This was one of the free ones that Amazon gives out at the beginning of each month, and it's called What is Love by Jen Comfort. We follow 2 main characters, Maxine and Teddy, both of which are trivia buffs, I guess you could say, and they go on what's called the quiz show. It's kind of like a Jeopardy, and they're both very successful on the show, and then they kind of go to like the tournament of champions. But the book is more about their relationship. They're kind of like frenemies, competitors. I rated it 3 stars. I thought it was interesting, especially like the trivia aspect, but didn't find I was drawn to any particular character. And while I liked it and it kept my interest, it just wasn't a 4 or 5 star read for me. It's Tuesday, May 14th, and I just finished a book. It Starts With Us by Colleen Hoover, which is the sequel to It Ends With Us. And I read It Ends With Us a few years ago, so it took me a little bit of time to get back into the characters, figure out what was going on, remember what happened in the previous book, because this one picks up right where the last one left off. So it did take me a little bit of time to get back into it, to figure things out, but once I did, it was a fast read for me. I enjoyed it. I rated it 4 stars, but you definitely would want to read It Ends With Us first to know the characters and understand what's going on in this book. But if you enjoyed It Ends With Us, I think you would like reading the sequel. So a good one for me. I don't feel like I've had a lot of 5-star reads yet this year, so let me know some of your 5-star reads so I can try those out and hopefully get those ratings up a little bit. But I think I'm going to end this book vlog here because it's been going since January and I've already got quite a few books to tell you about. So I'm going to cut it off here and then start a new one with the next book. But I hope you enjoyed hearing about what I've been reading for pretty much the first half of the year. And I will be back with more books in the coming months.